to be quite frank, the Chicago Bulls absolutely got destroyed last night by the OKC Thunder. They got their ass kicked, for lack of better terms. And because of that, it has, of course, now stirred up or reinvigorated talks about the value of tanking over not tanking, and if this run by the Chicago Bulls and what they've been on is going to end up being worth it. We're going to talk about it all and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And the Chicago Bulls, that was ugly last night by the Chicago Bulls. Like I said, to be frank, the Bulls absolutely got destroyed by the OKC Thunder, and you can tell which team was the better class team. Like, there was no doubt about that. I think there should have been no doubt about that coming into it, right? But of course, and as I said in the pregame show yesterday, that when that game happened with the Chicago Bulls, that people were going to use it to solidify or reaffirm whatever their current narrative was anyway. Whether the people that are at the one end of it saying something is crazy that the Bulls could upset the Cavs, to the other people that's on the other end of it saying that everything the Chicago Bulls have done is sucked because the Bulls should have been tanking, even though the Bulls have showed us, they've told us, they've done it with their actions. This is not a team that's going to be tanking, right? I think that's the overall thing with this. And of course, now with the Chicago Bulls and their their loss yesterday, the Miami Heat's win, it's now put the Bulls back firmly in the 10th worst record of the NBA, right? And the Bulls, for those that don't know, they have a 13.9% chance at a top 4 pick and a 3% chance at the number 1 overall pick, being in that spot, right? So, and here's the thing, right? I know that people that love to tank or not to tank, and I think there are two different conversations that need to be had. Then it's a multi-layered conversation that most people don't really want to have, right? You have the people that like to point out, well, you need a top 4 pick or a top 5 pick to be a contender. Look at all these teams that are contenders and they have a top 4 or 5 pick on their team. Yeah, but not all of those got done by tanking. Like, if you look at the Boston Celtics, for example, yeah, they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Both those picks were Brooklyn net picks that they got for making the Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce trade. They weren't picks that they got by tanking, right? Like, I think you got to look at that part of it when it comes down to that, right? You even the OKC Thunder, most of those picks, when you look at the number of top 10 picks that they have on the team, and they have a lot, right? I want to be clear there. The Thunder have a lot of top 10 picks, but you look at Shea was acquired in a trade, right? Most of the picks that they used to acquire those players were also, guess what, acquired in a trade. So you have that aspect of things in as well. So it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, really, when you go back and look at the last 15 years, right? And please, like I said, look, I want this to be a living conversation, not one that we're attacking each other. But yes, you can have a list of teams that have a top 5 pick on it. That is the reason why they're contending. But how many of those are actually by tanking, right? Like, you look at, like I said, the OKC Thunder, Chet number 2, Jalen Williams number 2, Josh Giddey number 6, Cason Watson, even though Josh Giddey's not on the team anymore, Cason Wallace number 10, right? But most of those picks were because Sam Presti managed to add picks and be smart in his deals, right? Like, not every top 5 pick is acquired by tanking, and I think that's the conversation that a lot of people aren't really willing to have, right? Especially the people who are just pro tankers and just look at, well, they're a top 5 pick. You need a tank to get a top 5 pick. It's like, that's not necessarily true, right? You look at the New York Knicks, for example. That's a team that I don't know if any of that, the main part of that squad, like, they just built organically over time. They used to flip assets, things like that, right? So, and here's the thing, right? When you want to look at tanking, you also need to look at the bad side and the downside of tanking, which is something, again, that either pro tankers don't want to focus on and the anti-takers don't really want to talk. Well, they just focus on, right? You look at LaMelo Ball. The Charlotte Hornets, you could say, absolutely tanked to get LaMelo Ball, right? To be in the place that they were. Some could also just say they're just a stupid and bad franchise, because they are. When you look at the number of first-round picks that the better player ended up going either right after, right? The picks that they've left on the board are almost a superstar team in of themselves. But the Charlotte Hornets, they got a superstar in LaMelo Ball, somebody who can be that, right? Now he can't stay healthy. They also got Brandon Miller, but look at how many times that they've sniffed being in a playoff race since LaMelo Ball has been on that team, right? Look at Portland. Portland's another team. Scoot Henderson. I mean, right now he's looking like a disappointment. Not to say he can't be an NBA player, but when you look at the expectations around him, he's not living up to that right now. Shaedon Sharpe is pretty solid, right? But he's not nowhere near a star. Donovan Clingan, early in his career, we'll see what he ends up turning into, right? And you look at Portland and Charlotte, those are two teams that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? I think the thing is that AK and Eversley, they picked their direction. And Josh Giddey, I know that people are saying you should have got a first-round pick. You should have got something different. It's hard to say a pick would have turned out to be better than what Josh Giddey has been for the Bulls. Now, the downside of Josh Giddey, we've gotten to see the ugly side of Josh Giddey and his game sometimes, and how you need to build a team, right? I think that goes to show, again, Arturas has to be consistent on building the vision. That's why I talked about that in yesterday's episode, how building out the team is just as important as who you have on the team. How do you do that? Matas Buzelis, a player that we also got, not via tanking. We were just a bad team, right? And, some people are now pointing out and looking at Matas and saying that if the draft were to be redrafted, he'd probably go number 1 overall, which originally he was slated to come into that draft, right? Coby White's a player that's taking a step. Io's taking a step up in the right direction, right? We know he's out injured right now. So, the Bulls, I would say this. They've picked the right direction. And the thing that a lot of also pro tankers don't like talking about is the fact that, hey, let's not forget the Bulls still have a lottery pick, right? Let's wait till the results of the lottery before we really make our decision. Now, we'll see. I think the teams that are in the playing area are starting to play a little bit better for sure, right? But, I knew that was going to be the narrative from certain outlets and people in regards to that, right, is that the Bulls should have tanked. This is just proof that why the Bulls didn't tank. Like, you see, we can't even compete with the OKC Thunder. We're so far off. Like, they aren't having a generational season in regards to the point differential that they have against the teams that they've been beating. Not just the Chicago Bulls. You look at what they've been doing. They have a 13.3 differential. Like that's 3 highest than the next team behind them, and even that would be one of the highest differentials in that we've seen in NBA history, right? So I get where we're getting at, and I know that was going to be triggering for a lot of people. But here's the thing: the course that the Bulls have been on, right? I think sometimes people also forget. Like, yeah, the Bulls went on a little bit of winning streak. We still won 33 games this season. Like, let's be clear here, right? So we have 7 games left now. And even though the Bulls were to win out with games against the Cavs, like they sit at 40 and 42, right? So even if they were, which I don't think that they will be, but let's say even if they were to, I don't know if you can say that like the Bulls weren't going to catch up. The Washington Wizards have 16 wins. The Charlotte Hornets have 19 wins on the season. The Utah Jazz have 16 wins, right? Like it was always going to be difficult for the Bulls team to be as bad as the teams that are going to truly be in the bottom 5 to guarantee themselves a top 5 to 6 pick. So, we'll see what the future does hold for the Bulls, and we'll see what the future does hold in that draft. But I'll say this, like, building a young team, going younger, having the young pieces that you have here, giving yourself something, right? And so we'll see what comes out of that. And it is up to AK, it is up to Eversley to continue to build out that dream and to see what this team is going to be, right? It is a major, major part of that. And so overall, we'll see what comes about it, right? I get the frustration. I hear the frustration. I feel your frustration, all right? I want to be clear there. But it's still this thing where, like, let's wait to see what the story's been told, right? So no, and for me, and I know I've gotten a lot of questions about it and things like that, and is going to continue to see how the Bulls week goes. No, this does not change the way that I feel about the Bulls and the run that they went on, which is why talking about that run, I did say, hey, the Bulls are showing themselves that they can do something, but we still got to see it at the beginning of next season, regardless of how this season ended. I don't care if Josh Giddey ended the season with 20 straight games and scoring 20 points or more, right? You still needed to see how they started off next season before you can really start building off of that as being, what the standard, right? And what did I say in yesterday's episode? You never want to act like a player when they're playing their best is who they are for sure. You don't want to look at just at who they are as their worst at who they are for sure either. It's somewhere between that, and that's with every player, right? And so now what the Bulls have done with the run that Coby was on, that also stopped yesterday. Coby White was bad yesterday as well, right? The Bulls as a whole were bad. Like I don't want to target out any other player because everybody was bad last night, whether it was defensively, whether it was offensively. Matas Buzelis was one of the players again to show some heart and to show some energy in that with what he was able to do. But even then, he was bad defensively at times. There were times where he couldn't get anything going offensively as well. So like it was a very big wake-up call to just how far you have to be if you really want to be a contender. But then again, like I said to those people who over the course, like when I got the call this weekend, like, oh, the Bulls are 1 or 2 pieces away from being a contender. No, the fuck we're not. Like, I love the run that we are on, but no, the hell we are not, right? And anybody who also, like in yesterday's episode, there's some people that took issue with me saying you need a star, right? You need a number one. And they're like, I think some people were like, well, who, like, the NBA is not about number ones. And he was like, yes, the fuck it is. You still need a number one. You still need a guy that's like, all right, bet. We're going to still be competitive in this game because of what I can bring to the table. The Bulls still need that guy. Could it develop on their roster? Let's hope so. Could they find it in the draft? Let's hope so, right? It's still a process to build a true contender, but there's steps to get there, right? The Bulls aren't on that step yet. They can't turn into that team yet. They haven't even gotten to the point of even getting to where you could say they're turning the corner yet, right? They had a strong finish to the season. Well, a strong middle part to the finish of the season. We'll see what they do over this last 7 games. And, Coby and Josh Giddey have shown that they can work together as a backcourt, right? Matas Buzelis has shown that he's a guy that's going to be a starter in this league going forward. All those things are true, right? But the thing now is okay, what's after that? You've showed these things, but all those things coming together really don't mean anything if you're not really building a team out. And it takes a full and total process and a vision from your front office to do that. And that's where AK and Eversley have to be at next, is what is next for this team in regards to how do you get there? And part of that is the draft, right? And I said in yesterday's, I think it was pregame show, maybe it was post-game show, is that let's not act and like the Bulls are all of a sudden not guaranteed to be in the lottery either. We're still a lottery team. The lottery is still a lottery, right? And so we can't act as if just because the Bulls pick right now isn't slated to be in the bottom 5 records and the top 5 picks, that we don't know what is going to happen with this lottery. Do the Bulls get some lottery luck? Right now, we got higher odds than what we had when we got Derrick Rose. I believe right now we got higher odds than the Atlanta Hawks last year. Maybe it's around the same. But so because of that, like, you got to look at this thing and just, you got to wait to see how it's going to play out. Now, in a draft as well, in talent, that this talent rich that this draft is, you can still get a lot of great talent in this draft, even if you are somewhere at 10. So, let's pump the brakes, both positively and negatively. Let's just chill, right? And we'll see how the season finishes. We'll see what the draft lottery brings for the Chicago Bulls. And then once we know that, I mean, that's where things will shake, rattle, and roll, I guess. And we'll see where things shake up. But the Bulls got to be better. Like, last night needs to really be a wake-up call for the players in regards to how well and what level you have to execute at if you really want to win consistently in this NBA. This is not the NBA of the past. This is not the league of the past, right? There's so much talent around this league that every single day you have to bring it. And you have to be on your P's and Q's if you want to win in this league. You just have to be. And when you're not, you can face off some disappointment. We got a game next week against the Cleveland Cavaliers. It could be another wake-up call for the Chicago Bulls. But here's the thing. I'm not somebody who I like to reframe based off just the right now, right? There's a lot of people that do that based off, if the Bulls are on a winning streak, they feel differently about the team. They're on a 2-game losing streak. It completely changes how they feel about the team. No. I'm looking at the totality of what this team has brought to the basketball court this year. And there have been some signs of definitely future concern. There have been some signs of some things working out, i.e. Coby and Josh Giddey as a backcourt have shown more that they can work. But I'll say this, and I said this even at the height. You can go back and check it. They haven't shown themselves yet to be a backcourt that is going to be a consistently high-level winning team, right? And, that takes a team to beat, right? Josh Giddey and Coby White are not star-level players. They're not. Just because you score a lot of points does not make you a star in the NBA. And you got to get to that. Being a star in the league isn't just about putting up big numbers. It's about how consistently you can do that with a level of competition, and they're learning. It's not a bad thing for me to say, for the Josh Giddey stands, it's not a bad thing to say that Josh Giddey isn't a star yet. It's just called awareness, a level of awareness that you need to have if you want to be able to talk about basketball objectively. He's not yet. Can he get there? Absolutely. Can he get to the point of being a superstar, an all-star? Absolutely. He's shown those flashes, but you have to do it consistently. You have to do it almost day in and day out. You have to do it at a time period where your team needs you the most. That's why when people are like, "Oh, this player's a superstar." I'm like, nah. A superstar is somebody who transcends just the game of basketball, right? A star is the impact that you have on your team and around the league, right? And so it takes a lot to be a star in this league. It takes consistency over years to really be a star in this league, right? And so I think when you look at those part of things, the Bulls still got a lot of growth that they need to do. But let's not lose fact of how we view this team coming into the season, where they are after so much of the veteran talent of this team leaving. And, we got to now, I know it's scary, right? We got to now wait to see what AK and Eversley are going to do, which, honestly, to be 100% honest with y'all, is quite terrifying. Because what we've seen from this team and AK is that, he does some things well. He does some things that are questionable. He does some things that, you look back on and you have to be like, oh, he actually kind of cooked here, right? And I went down through it and I ran through it. He's signed more good contracts than bad contracts. He's drafted so when you look at the place that he drafted at, but he found talent in the second round in IO, right? Matas was there, but people can fairly say, well, he fell to the Bulls at number 3, should have gone a lot higher, had the questions, and maybe if he went to college instead of going to the Ignite, that's fair, right? But overall, this team is a team that's still building. Let's not lose sight of that. The last couple of weeks for the Bulls did not make it to where the Bulls still aren't a team that's building. We still are. And even more so when you look at what we've sent out. But the Bulls do play a back-to-back. So we played the first game of that last night. We do play again tonight. And this is a game where, again, the Chicago Bulls, let's see how they bounce back, right? You now have to face off against on your home court, which could be difficult, could not be, right? The Bulls, when it comes down to the Chicago Bulls, every single game has to be fought tooth and nail, right? You got to go into the game being that scrappy team. You got to go into the game being a team that's playing sound on both sides of the ball, right? This is everything that the Bulls have to do if they really, really want to compete in games this year, right? And so I don't care who the opponent is. The Bulls cannot look at them and take them lightly. And for that matter, you can't, right? That's what the Bulls have shown. This is not a team that can take their foot off the gas at any point in time. You don't have time to feel sorry for yourself. You just don't have that in this league, and the Chicago Bulls definitely don't. Yeah, you're facing off against the Toronto Raptors. Great. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I don't care about the Toronto Raptors record. This is still a team that at times plays better, right? This is still a team that has players that can absolutely fill it up against you, and that's where the Bulls have struggled at times, is against players and teams that can really fill it up, right? And so that's what the Bulls are really going to have to look at themselves today when they face off against the Toronto Raptors. They're 4-1 in their last 5. And in that last 5, they have the 12th best net rating in basketball, 27th offensively, but number 1 defensively, right? Now, they have a true shooting percentage of 51, which is 29th in the NBA, which means that if the Bulls can lock in defensively tonight, they have a pretty good chance. But the Toronto Raptors are also trying to lock in defensively. And after the defensive nightmare you just had against the OKC Thunder, let's be clear here. This is a copycat league. And the Toronto Raptors don't necessarily have the personnel to exactly replicate what the Thunder did against us last night, but they're going to try. They're going to try their best to. They're going to try to take the ball out of Coby's hands. They're going to try to keep it to where Coby White and Josh Giddey can't get to the lane. They're going to try. And because of that, that is where things can get really freaking difficult for the Chicago Bulls if they don't keep their head up about themselves today. So we got to watch out for that. This is I won't call it a potential trap game, but when you've lost 2 in a row, you're playing off against a team that's won 4 out of the last 5 games. You cannot come in here and take this team lightly. You cannot come in here and falter. So the Bulls got to be prepared for what the Toronto Raptors are going to do today. And how they're going to play their lineups as well, right? And I know that we've lost some players that definitely have hurt this Bulls team. But you got to have the next man up mentality, right? P. Will is going to be important in a game like this, because of the combination of size and strength that he has and how that does play and what the Toronto Raptors like to do, right? No Grady Dick. I think he's going to be out. RJ Barrett's still out for this team. Brandon Ingram's been out for this team. But This is still a team that does still have some depth. This is a team that still has Scotty Barnes that can fill it up. Emmanuel quickly can fill it up as well if you give him the opportunity. And Jakob Poeltl has been a nightmare at times for Nikola Vucevic on that side of the ball. So I think when all those things coalescing and coming together, the Bulls got to be on their P's and Q's tonight. And you're on your home court. Let's see if you can give your home fans a better show than what you put on TV for us last night. And we'll see what the Bulls can do tonight. But that's my thought process. That's my thoughts. I'll be live at the game today, so make sure you guys are following us for that. Make sure you're following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.